Live from Michigan City, Indiana, it's Long Arm TV Live with Jamie Wallen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Quilters Apothecary. Today, we are actually going to be using one of our number 6 dimensional rulers in a border because I've had a lot of requests since that tutorial went up as far as how would I use this and where would I use it, and could you give us an example of how to use it? So I thought I'd go over that. But first, welcome everybody. It's nice to have you here live if you're on the live feed. And of course, after today, Rich is going to clean this up and he's going to repost it. Um, we just got back from doing all of our running for the day. We went to the post office and all of that stuff and wore all of our safety guard. So just know that we had a few questions. Are orders still going out? Absolutely, they are still going out. And Rich is gowning and gloving, and he's got one of the masks, one of the good masks because, yeah, one of the really good masks because he's allergic to the onions and garlic, and I cook a lot, so he actually bought one of the really good respirator type masks to wear. So he looks totally crazy when he goes to the post office. But anyways, everything is going out. And of course, any incoming packages we're handling very safely. Everything gets sprayed down and wiped down with dilution of bleach water. So we're kind of doing our part here. We are going to the grocery store about once a week because we do take care of some high-risk families. So we go to the grocery store, and of course, I gown up for that. And only one of us goes, and it's that whole thing of come into the door, a garbage bag is ready, all the clothes go in it, and run into the shower and all of that. It's an interesting time. So I'm sure all of you are experiencing similar stuff. And of course, we're doing our daily dog walks because the dogs don't care. So, and we're staying way out in the country when we do our dog walks, so that's all safe. And so that's kind of how we're handling everything. Um, Anything extra that you want to add, Mr. Ritchie? Oh, yes. So next week also, we are going to be putting up thread for our on our website for sale. We're going to be carrying, of course, Isocord, which I love, as well as the Glide, and some of the Glide 60, is that correct? And the Magna Glide bobbins. So keep an eye out for that. I'm really falling in love with a lot of the colors of the Glide. I've been pretty exclusive Isocord, but I'm really enjoying using the Glide. I love that wonderful sheen it gives because it's very close to metallic on some of the colors. As you will see today, I'm using a wonderful color that looks almost copper or bronzish on this wonderful piece. So let's head over to the quilt now and let me show you some stuff on here, and then we can go to any of the live questions that you might have, and I can answer any questions for you all. And again, thank you for being here. Okay, so this particular quilt is a quilt that is owned by Patrick Whalen, and it was completed by Patrick Whalen and Nina Fire. Now, Nina and him do a lot of show quilts together, and she did an amazing quilt that was all dead rock star quilts. And this particular part right here is one of her Janis Joplin blocks that didn't make it into that particular quilt. And so Patrick took the block and then he kind of added to it and made a miniature wall hanging that I am working on. And when I saw it and I saw the border, and I had seen the questions of, will you please use some of these rulers and borders so we can see what to do with them in borders? I thought this is perfect. So I asked him to let me utilize this to do the border, and then he's going to do the rest of the quilt. So let me start with this. So on this particular quilt, what Patrick did when he pieced it was he used a hand-dyed specialty silk, which is this wonderful stuff, but it's very stretchy. And even though he pieced it perfectly square, to load it on the machine was a bit of a struggle for a minute. So let me go through how I loaded this particular quilt because it's not how I normally do. When I loaded this piece on, normally what I would do is I would base the top of the quilt and then work my way down and start doing my ditch work. But this time I did it absolutely opposite because of the stretchy fabric. So what I did was when I loaded the quilt top, and of course I'm a pinner, most of you know from seeing the loading tutorials, I pinned this on, and then when I lifted it up, instead of starting with a straight line right here with my channel locks, I actually channel locked the ditch first right here, which is what show quilters actually do all of the time. I don't always do that for client quilts. So my ditch started here, then I ditched straight across here so that that way I could get a true straight line here. And then what I did was I measured up, and then I did another channel lock right across the top so that that way this all the way across is perfectly even. And then the next thing I did, because he has these beautiful cornerstones, and this is actually the cornerstones that he put in is actually this fabric just flipped around. So one side is that beautiful shiny silk, almost like a radiance, but it's not radiance. And then this side is the natural side or the matte finish side, but it gives such a wonderful effect the way that he did that. So what I did after I ditched here and did across the top was I went ahead and I ditched down my side on both sides here and down here. And then what I did was I went in a half of an inch because I wanted to leave some negative space just to make it a little more fancy. So I went in a half of an inch and chalked a line and gave myself another border inside that border. And then of course here in my cornerstone, I went in a half of an inch and did that. And then tomorrow, what we're actually going to do, and we'll get a shot for you of this, if you can go in pretty tight on that, Mr. Ritchie. We're actually going to do a tutorial on that particular block treatment, which just looks so cool. I just love it. Hopefully it looks that cool on camera. Um, but we're going to do a tutorial, regular tutorial on that block over here tomorrow that we'll put up towards the beginning of the week. So let's go back to our border section, which is really what we're going to be focusing on. So again, I'm using my number 6 mystical dimensional ruler, which is of course that triple spike that I know most of you know that I love, and then of course the matching micro curve. So I can use this side of the curve and this side, as you'll see in a few minutes, to actually quilt this design out. So how I set this up was once I went in a half of an inch here, I then went in and measured and located halfway through, and I did a horizontal line perfectly straight across. And then of course I measured this way, and now I have a vertical line straight up and down here. And if you can kind of squeeze in there, Mr. Ritchie, right about there. You can get in there. I did go ahead and pre-mark this, and I actually did start quilting just to save us a little bit of time. So what I did was, my very first one that I did was right there in the dead center. So I lined that up right on the center, and as you look at that ruler, you can see that we have the crosshair right there. So that crosshair is perfectly lined up straight. I went ahead. Again, most of you know I like the Bowen Thin when I'm using these particular rulers to mark with. And when I mark again, whenever you use these types of rulers, no matter whose you get, you want to make sure to mark, but keep it close to the actual template. You don't want to be like an eighth of an inch away. You want to get that mark right up and against that template. So there's where I started. Then of course I came down. I'm sorry, that first one I made sure also to get my little divot marks that are on these new rulers. And then I came down, lined everything up. I did this little bottom section, marked that, and then I came up and did the top. And then what I like to do is then start at the top, and I marked everything from the top down all the way over to the left If you want to squeeze out a little bit. Thank you. I went all the way over to the left, and then I stopped, and then I went all the way over to the right. So everything has been pre-marked and everything is lined up and perfectly straight. Now, the next thing that I did was I just started over here and I went ahead and locked my stitches, and I used this ruler, which is what we're going to be using shortly, and I did my 1, 2, 3, stop, flip the ruler, 1, 2, 3, 4, stop, turn the ruler. Now, when I turn the ruler, you can kind of see, you can't see right where my stitching is going to be. I could go here, 1, 2, 3, or better for the camera, I could go there so that way you can see I can get that. And then I simply moved my way down and back up, and then we're going to continue in just a minute all the way over. But I wanted to go ahead and give you a visual of what happens here. So once I finished this little section, I just went in and then I did my micro stipple right inside here. There we go. How's that? Right inside there to get that nice filler so you get that wonderful 3D effect. Now, I'm not going to do it today on the live shot, but what I'm probably going to do when all is said and done in this border is I'm going to go ahead and do my 1, 2, 3 spoke, just like we did in that actual tutorial that we have up with the number 5 and 6. If you want to go check that out on YouTube, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to put some negative space in here and possibly some filler to give it a little bit more of that wonderful three-dimensional weave effect that I like so much. Okay, let me come over here. I'm going to lock our stitches and let's get to quilting. And remember, if you have any questions, we will take questions as we move along. We're going to get into this a little bit before we have questions. And I know a lot of you are going to be talking back and forth. So the one thing that I would like to say is if you have a question specifically for us, just put a question mark in front of the question and then a question mark after. And then Rich, when he looks at the questions, can kind of see it and it'll catch his eye, depending on how many people are online. So I've locked that. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, stop, turn my ruler, line that up. And then again, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, back, and I'm just making that line nice and bold. Now I'm going to go in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself on precision right now rather than cruise. I had it on cruise when I was doing my micro work. Okay, so now I'm going to line that up. 1, 2, 3, stop, and then very simply I'm just going to follow that line that's already there, and then I'm going to turn, and I'm going to repeat that process right here, going down here, and I'm just going to keep working my way up and down. So 1, 2, 3, stop, flip, turn, 1, 2, 3, stop, flip, turn, 1, 2, 3. And I have to say this, when I line this ruler up, especially right now because I'm not right on top of it for the video camera, but when I line this up, if I'm a little bit off, these are very forgiving. This design will still look amazing, even if I'm just a little bit of a hair off of the marked line. Remember, the marked line is a suggestion, and once you get it quilted, if you're a 1/16 of an inch or even an 1/8 of an inch off, nobody's really going to notice. I always tell people when they say, but won't people see it? And it's like, no, what do they know what you're doing? They didn't take the class. So we're going to turn this, line it up. 1, 2, 3, stop, turn, line it up, and you're just going to work your way through. And remember, you can travel each of these lines as many times as you need to travel to get to where you want to go. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to come down, line that up, travel up, line that up. Now I'm going to head back up. Now I see I missed a spot down here. That's fine. So what'll happen is as I work my way up and come back down, I'll just re-travel this ditch and I'll go ahead and pick up those two that I missed. Okay, and let me go behind so you can see a little better what I'm doing. Line that up. 1, 2, 3, stop. Let me get that tail out of there. One, 2, 3, stop, flip it upside down, come back down. 1, 2, 3, come back. I'm going to put my little tips right here because even though it might not show up, if when he does the binding, there's a little tip, I want to make sure that it looks like I put that tip in there. The other question that I got the other day was, you tend to hit your start and stop switch a lot. Are you concerned that that's going to wear out your start and stop switch? No, that's what they're for. They're there to turn on and to turn off. That's the whole point of having a start and stop. And like I had said the other day, if you didn't catch it, in all of the 23 years that I've been doing this, I've replaced, I think, 2 or 3 switches total. And I am a constant start and stopper. And they're not that expensive to replace. Line it up, come back down. So is everybody getting caught up on all their TV shows and all the new TV shows? I bet there's a lot of binging going on. I've been doing a lot of books on tape, getting caught up on all of those that I haven't been able to listen to that I wanted to listen to. Watched a few films. Saw one the other night called Crawl. That was amazing. If you have the opportunity, it's great. Wonderful film. Two, 3. I always get teased because it's not a horror one, but it's certainly suspense. But I do like my scary movies, which is so weird because I'm typically not that guy. Honestly, I'm not a serial killer. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I'm going to travel the ditch. And then I'm going to go. I missed 2. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Ritchie. 3, I would have missed that and then had to have come back. You know, I should just have you here whenever I'm quilting and say, no, go here, go here. No? Okay, so now I'm going to follow that ditch back. Line it up. 1, 2, 3. And I know watching this stuff, it's kind of it's fun to watch for a bit, but then it can get when you're a doer, you want to go quilt it. So I totally understand that. Football's that for me. I can't stand watching football, but I do actually love to play football. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to slide the ditch. Go in here. So right now I'm also listening on my books to Lincoln Child's, what is it? The Boneyard. It's about the Donner Party. So the party years ago in the 1800s that were traveling to the West Coast and got caught in snowstorm, and they all had to revert to cannibalism. So, anyways, this book, I know, really, yes, of course.
Really?
Oh, please, you know what? I know quilters. Of course, they're interested in that. Awesome book, actually, it's really good. So what's happening is now they're going right in there, and there's a scientist, and they found another camp that the Donner Party set up, and they're looking for the gold that somebody in the party had with them that's worth millions of dollars now. So, anyways, that is if you like their books, and they write the Pendergast mysteries, which are amazing. That starts with Relic. Good books. Come down. Up. Really? Jeez. Mr. Ritchie is more Downton Abbey than the good stuff. And never a book will be read by Mr. Ritchie. He does not do books. I have tried and tried. I posted on Facebook the other day. When we do spend time together in the evening, we are watching, he's having me watch Stargate because I've never seen Stargate. And I was joking that I think we're on season 28. I have never seen a show with so many seasons. And then he joyfully announced, and I have all the Stargate Atlantises. Now, they are pretty good, but I'm starting to get my saturation point. Okay, so now we're going to continue traveling. And as you're watching me do this, what you do see is that every once in a while, or maybe you don't see it, and that's a good thing to see, is that every once in a while I'm a little off, but it doesn't show up in the actual design work. It still looks great, even if the curve is just a smidge off. It's not that big of a deal. So now it's not that much left to do here, but you kind of get the point on how this is going to flow. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to travel down here, and I'm simply going to work through the sections that I have. I'm going to turn that back over. I'm on 300 cruise mode. The machine I'm working on today, we have different types of machines, but this one is the Handy Quilter Amara. And I'm simply going to do a nice micro stipple, just a quick meander to fill it in, because it's such a tiny space and I want to get that nice negative space. And then I'm going to follow that down. Normally I'd wait till I was all done, but I'm not going to have you sit through the whole border treatment. Go in, fill that up. Boom, boom, boom. Being careful not to cross lines. Ha 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 ha. I figure if someone needs to get in that close and tell me that I crossed a line, serves them right. Gonna come in, fill that up. Okay, line that up. Boy, I'm seeing all of the incredible projects you all are doing on Facebook, and they look amazing. Who did I just see do some miniature? I think it was Scott Merkin is doing some amazing stuff. A wonderful quilt judge. His stuff is always very, very cool. And then, of course, Frank Palmer is doing some wonderful work. As usual, he loves his straight line modern work, and I just love the look of his stuff. I can't do it myself, but it looks amazing when he does it. So many people doing some wonderful work out there. It's a nice time. You know, sometimes it's like I remember before all of this stuff was going on, we were always like, boy, I wish I had more time to do things. And I will say this, I need to clean my house horribly, and I should have already started that whole process, but for some reason that is just not part of my priority right now. I have 4 past due, big past due. Brian Parton is one of them. His amazing quilt that I am working on right now to try to get caught up, because on custom I always get behind on my custom work. Not edge to edge. My edge to edge goes pretty good. I can usually get those done within a month, but I'm always run so late on my custom. And then I feel the shame. And you get the calls. Where's my quilt? Or that the gentle ones are always, Jamie, I was just wondering, how's the so and so coming? And it's like, oh gosh. Want to plug my ears and go la 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 la. Those are the emails that Rich loves to forward me. Loves to see the blood pressure go up. Okay, so again, I am simply going in here and I'm doing my microfill. And I'm doing it one-handed, which is working just fine. Now, I might add, I am doing one-handed microfill with this particular machine. And this machine has a computer system on it. And, you know, I am not a machine snob. I love all of the brands of machines, as all of you know. And I do have multiple brands, but this particular machine, the Handy Quilters with the computer system, once you disengage the computer system with just one button, it's just like there's nothing on here. It's just like a freehand machine, and I love that feel. I can switch back and forth from computerized to non-computerized. So you can kind of see how we're heading. What we're doing is we're going in, and I'm going to fill in all of these, and then later this afternoon or tomorrow, I'm going to do some decorative stuff in here. And then tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do a regular tutorial and then a live tutorial on this. And I have to be careful what we do live and what we do as a regular tutorial, because when I do this, I have to have both my hands here to get this block, just to have my feathers look really good. And so the camera needs to be up and over my shoulder. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit of work. And if you have any questions, please let them out. And I don't care if it's about this or not. If you have any questions about anything, We just did a tutorial that we're releasing on marking tools. I did an updated marking tool. I think Rich is going to release that within the next few days. What else did we do, Rich? We did one on what else? Cruise mode. Um, Cruise, coast, start speed. I know I have one out there specifically for the Innova machines. We just did the cruise mode for the Handy Quilter and some of the other machines that have those modes, which is wonderful. If you haven't been using those modes, you really want to start using those modes. They're absolutely incredible. And then we finished another one of the dimensional series. So tomorrow we're going to hit another one on a block designer. We're trying to really throw a lot of the tutorials out on different things right now. Number one, to keep people entertained, and number two, to keep you engaged with your creative energy. It's real easy to go into inertia and sit and start watching TV and just kind of get depressed. And I will say that too through all of this. Right now, everybody is going to be feeling a little bit of, even if you're not apt to or prone to depression, everybody's kind of feeling event type of depression. So just know that that's pretty normal. Get a lot of rest and do the things that you need to do to take care of yourself. Any questions, Mr. Ritchie? Okay.
So, Jamie, the first question I have here is from Deb B. Jamie, do you ever mark your fabric before you put it on the machine?
You know, actually, start again. Okay, we're switching the mic back and forth. We have this system. We're switching to a new system soon, so I have to wait, and I don't wait. Sorry about that. Um, Typically, no. I would say 95% of the time I mark on the frame because I don't want to mark if I pre-mark, especially straight lines, because once I get it on the frame and once everything is straight, I could have taken those lines and stretched them out of proportion, and so they're not straight anymore, and then my design is completely thrown off. So typically, I like to mark on the frame. That being said, when I'm working on a whole cloth or something like that, I'll at least make my areas and mark the main sections. Or if I'm doing like a giant medallion and I need to get some registration points in, then I'll go ahead and I'll pre-mark some of the registration. But I don't stick to them as law. So once I get it on the machine, I may change them a little bit to re-straighten out the lines.
Machine. Okay. The next question is kind of for me. Have you decided, and this is from Colleen S., have you decided if you're going to postpone the May classes? Sorry if you already answered this. No, we haven't. Colleen, we're kind of playing that by ear right now. Uh, it's looking more and more like we won't have classes in May, but we don't want to pull the pin on it when it may be a possibility. I don't think any of us know what's going on. I have tentatively have got some dates to move the May classes to later in the year. We've made a place in the schedule. But those of you that are signed up for the May classes, we will be in touch with you. You're not stranded. We're not going to keep people's money, anything like that. You're our family. We're going to take care of you one way or another. If you'd like to move into other classes, this is something none of us expected, and we're going to do right by everybody. All right. So,
We will take care of everybody. Don't you worry about that. That's what we're committed to. So that's something you don't have to worry about. But if it's not a safe time yet for people to be traveling and doing things, we will cancel them. And we just don't know yet. May, is it the middle of May, end of May? Yeah, it's still 5 weeks. So we're just kind of waiting to see what's going on. Um, and there we go. That's it.
okay, the next question is from Kathy A. Can you use another of your rulers to do the stitching of the curves? If so, which would you recommend?
Yeah, so if you didn't want to use this one to stitch the curve. Now, this one is for the mini. like we have a teeny tiny one, and then we have a bigger one. Bu- 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 bum, that is a little bit bigger, and then I use the micro curve. You know, and I have to say, Rich, didn't I just did a video on something? What did I do? Where I used a curved ruler and I showed him how to shift the ruler if it didn't match the curve. Do you remember what video that? That was a live one. Okay. Couple weeks ago. So check one of the live. You know, when I'm doing like a that Rich, you want to redo the camera for me for just a second, just so I can kind of quickly do that. If you're desperate and you want to get something done and you don't want to wait for a ruler to come in the mail, this is the curve. And I'll wait until he gets this situated, everybody. I'm wearing a lot of hats here. Yes, he is jack of all trades today. Okay. So this is the curve that goes with this ruler that's been marked out. But I could use this once it's marked. It's just that as I am quilting it on the line, I would simply be turning my ruler and shifting the ruler to stay on the line. It takes a little practice. It's not as convenient. That's why it's nice to marry the rulers if you like these types of designs. But anytime that you don't have the perfect size curve, you can use something similar. It's just that you're going to have to shift it as you go. And again, let me do that again so you can see. So even though this curve does not match up with that design, as I get to a place where it would go off the line, I'm going to shift that curve to keep it on the line. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So yes, you can use a different size curve. But I do suggest, these are cheap. I mean, I'm surprised um, how inexpensive our ruler maker was able to get them to us. In our rulers, we don't tack on, um, like I know a lot of ruler makers will tack on 100 to 150% just so that they can sell, be able to sell wholesale or at discounts. We just tack on like 40 or 50% of our costs because we know that times are tough for most people. And also, our other rulers have the handles, and nobody would ever be able to buy them because the handles are plastic weld, so they're expensive to make. So we don't actually double the price or that sort of thing. So we try to keep the prices down as low as we possibly can.
Recommend. Okay, so Jamie, would you consider this custom or semi-custom work? And that question is from Robin L.
Hi, Robin. He always does this to me. Like, don't talk yet. Hi, Robin. Actually, I would consider this custom, if not high custom. I mean, this is certainly something that's a little more time consuming. So anything like this would be considered custom. You know, if I'm not just going over and doing some sort of all over design and going right through blocks, for me, it's considered custom. And I have four different levels of custom. I have my basic custom or my budget custom, which is a border treatment, and then an edge to edge in the body. Now, my next level up, for example, would be um, basic custom, which would be I might ditch between the body and border. I might do continuous curve or grid work, which is continuous curve alternative in some of the blocks. I'm not doing a lot of ditch work in that. I'm doing something fairly simple in the blocks, even though I'm still paying attention to the blocks, but I'm not doing a lot of ditch work in those blocks. And then I would have the next level up, which might be I'm ditching around the blocks. I'm taking a little more time, but I'm still not going to the high custom level. Next two levels would be a high-end custom, where I am actually ditching around all the blocks and doing a lot more ditch work, and a little more fancy. I would consider this to be maybe not all the way up into the heirloom custom type work, but pretty close in the top three layers of custom. So for me, that's it. You know, and I have to say, if you're doing this type of work for clients yourself, and it's hard for a lot of us to ask what we're worth. And I know I still have a lot of long armors out there that are making $1 to $2 an hour. And I have to remind you, it's not our responsibility to make our clients' hobby affordable. It is our responsibility to get paid at least minimum wage. Typically I know if I'm doing edge to edge work, I'm getting a good $10 to $15 an hour, maybe a little more depending on the speed of the design. But when I'm doing custom, I'm making anywhere from minimum wage to maybe $12 an hour. I'm not a fast quilter, it's just kind of the way that I work. I know that there are a lot of people that can really whip through and get custom done pretty fast. They're very efficient. One of my favorite quilters, Deloitte Jones, does that. She's amazing. She can get multiple custom quilts done a day, which is just phenomenal, and they look fabulous. She's one of those magical people. She's very attuned and she's right there and she's just purely focused. I tend to move a little slow and my body's getting older, and your body may be getting older. So you have to kind of charge accordingly. The one thing I will suggest is this. Um, if you're doing customer quilting for clients, it's always good at least every 3 months, have a running timer that you keep on your machine and keep track of how long it takes you to get a quilt done based on how much you're charging for that quilt. And that's a good way to judge. And also, the other thing that I always want to remind people, if you are quilting for clients, just because you're within 15 feet of your machine does not mean you are quilting. And it's real easy for us with our ADHD and when we have our studios in our house to kind of wander around and pet the dog and go into the kitchen and grab a snack and take the dog for a walk and come back and pet your fabric again and look at there and then do 15 minutes. I remember years ago what I found was even though I'm in my studio typically 8 to 16 hours a day quilting, literally, that's how I live. Um, what I found was that on an average of a 10-hour day, my machines were running only about 6 hours, 5.5, 6 hours. And a lot of people would say, well, that's still pretty good. There's a lot of design time. But that really was a cop out. A lot of times I would find myself being self-employed, my ADHD would kick in, and so I would wander a bit. And so again, it's good to have a timer going. I like to set goals with my quilting. So in other words, when nobody else is in the studio. For example, this border treatment that we're working on right now, I would have said I want this border done in an hour or an hour and a half, right? And so then I would be reaching my goal. And again, there are things that will help me. For example, books on tape are really helpful. What is not helpful? TV. Having a TV in a studio is a death sentence for me. I know that because I get, I'm quilting away. Yeah, unless I'm watching long arm TV live. There you go. So I'd be quilting away, but what happens is I would be looking up at the TV and then eventually I'd just be like this watching the TV rather than doing my quilting. And so I've learned I do have TVs in all my quilt studios, but if I am going to watch TV, I'm watching old shows like Dick Van Dyke and stuff like that I already know, or Gilligan's Island, silly stuff that I know what's going to happen just for noise. But typically, I like books on tape. They keep me focused, by the way. If you've never tried books on tape, the one thing that for most of us, there are a few people that they just can't cope with that extra stimulation. But for most of us that start listening to books on tape, it keeps you at your machine. So those are just a few things.
Okay, Jamie, the next question is from Andrea W. Jamie, would you do something on how to do a show quilt? That was a neat trick you started with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you got it. I tell you what, I tell you what, in the next few weeks, I will, I will pull out a show quilt. I'm going to get all the quilts that are on all the machines off. Give me a few weeks and I will load. I actually have a small show quilt of mine that I'm going to get ready to do. And I will do a bumper to bumper. We'll just do that. I'll do a complete, it might take a week, but I'll film complete beginning to end on how I would quilt a show quilt. Now, that being said, I want to say this. I don't quilt for judges. I mean, I do I'm a good quilter. I do a really good job with my quilting, but I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm one of the I'm not up there. I'm not like we have some wonderful show quilters out there. For example, you have like your Linda Taylor who does some amazing show quilts, Sharon Schomber, um, Margaret Solomon Gunn does amazing pieces. We have a Linda Hershka, of course, who I think just does amazing work. Kim Bruner does some. We have some incredible show quilters. But here's the thing. Here's the difference between for me is it's hard for me to spend more than a month on a quilt. It's like my ADHD just goes absolutely nuts. But I will absolutely, you give me a few weeks and I will do a bumper to bumper on a show quilt that I have coming up.
Started with. And Jamie Kathleen M asked the name of the two rulers again, please.
Okay, so the rulers that we use today are Mystical Dimensional, and this is the number 6, and it comes in a bigger size, which I love, and there's a tutorial that just went up, I think, last week on this, and it's a wonderful ruler. And then this is the um, Mystical Curve 2 Micro, which is a brand new ruler, and it's actually married to this particular curve. Now, let me say this, and this isn't a sales push because again, I'm creepy about sales stuff. I'm not a great salesperson, but I will say this. Instead of just purchasing the bundle set, go with the bundle set. You're going to use all of them. They are, when I came up with this whole three-dimensional series, they are phenomenal, and they are some wonderful ways to do some background fills that look very modern and dimensional. We want to see stuff that's different than some of our feathers and florals. Hey, sweetheart. Gypsy is coming in to get on the action. So those are the ones. So dimensional and the micro. So these two. And if you order this bundle set, what you need, the only rulers you need for the, how many rulers are in the so far in the one set, the first set, Rich? 7. So there's 7 of these types of rulers to do different things. And we're doing tutorials on all of them. We're adding about one tutorial a week for these. Um, Right, and number 3 is going to go up tomorrow. Now, this and this are the only 2 rulers aside from a ditch ruler that you need to accompany that set. So we try to keep it pretty basic with stuff that you might already have in your ruler stash. Ready?
Please. We have a question from Robin L. So do you charge for your design time?
I don't. I have to say I don't. I have a couple of friends that do. Um, or it's included in the pricing. I am a still per square inch charger, um, but I have a few friends. I think my dear friend Linda Hershka, I think she's a by the hour charger, and so she might put a little bit of design time. I don't know that for sure. But I would think people like her, Margaret Solomon, again, I'm speaking out of school, but I would think those folks probably do add a little bit of charging for design time. I usually will see a quilt and I'll have it hanging, and by the time I usually hang a quilt while I'm working on another quilt, we have like 9 machines. So at each of the machines, we have a place to hang the next quilt that's going to be going on that quilt. So usually for me, as I'm quilting one quilt and looking at the other, by the time I get that quilt loaded, I already know what I'm going to do. Um, and so it's just kind of built in. I need to work a little better at my pricing, I have to say. I always say, do as I say, not as I do. My pricing tends to be a little low when it comes to custom, from what I'm hearing from my other fellow long armors who keep saying, jack your prices up. You're kind of hurting us. So I am working on that. So I don't charge for design time, and that is a great a great question, but I have a pretty big portfolio. So normally when I see, it's almost like, and I mean this in a good way, it's um, almost like when I see a quilt, I immediately, as I look at the quilt top, superimposed over the top, because I have about 2,000 designs that are mine in my head. And so when I look at a quilt top, immediately it's like they're superimposed. I could do this, or I can do this, or I can do this. It's very what's the word, Rich? Formu, formula driven. And so I typically have designs that will superimpose immediately when I look at that. Um, Almost like a little bit of, I think, a little bit of the autism that I have. It kind of leads there.
And we have a question from Kathy A. For the larger design one, the name, please. I think she's referring to the Mystic.
So the Curve Mini, this one, two, Curve 2. You don't want the single, the one, you want the two. I like that because there's a double curve. You're able to do that. Hold that thought. But if that's not what you were talking about, then this is the mystical dimensional number 5. Number 6, obviously smaller. And then, of course, the Mini 2 curve 2 goes with the number 5. And then the micro goes with the number 6. So hopefully that answered your question. And again, a good ditch ruler, ditch ruler you like. There's so many good ditch rulers out there. Mine has the handle. I like the handle because my arthritis is horrible. So I can't hold a flat ruler too long. But that doesn't apply to everybody.
Curve. So I'm going to butt in here just a little bit. A couple things coming up in the future. We're going to, hopefully in the next few weeks, we're going to be having some guests on with Jamie via Skype or FaceTime. So that's a technology we'll be adding. And another thing that we're working on is any of you that have been in any of Jamie's How Would I Quilt This classes, hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll be launching How Would I Quilt This. You'll be sending in a high resolution JPEG of one of your quilts, and then Jamie will be quilting it live in the live broadcast.
Not quilting.
No, be quilting it on the iPad, showing how you would do it. So that's some things coming up, hopefully in the next few weeks. We're going to endeavor to be doing these live broadcasts at 3 p.m. Central Time on Saturdays. It seems to be one of the good times for it. And again, we will always be remastering it after to correct any issues with lag in the voice, and we'll be putting them back up. So starting usually Sunday morning or late Saturday night, you'll be able to review it or view it after it's been remastered.
So, okay. So I will say this. The how will I quilt this? How would I quilt this thing is fun. I mean, I do this as a class at guilds and different things, and it is fun. We do pictures on the iPad, and then I use the iPencil, and I do that. So that's something that definitely you'll want to see. Then I usually try to go over a few different designs. Okay. So let me say thank you for joining us. It's always wonderful to spend time with my community. You know you're loved. I've said that a million times. I know you get sick of saying that, or of hearing me say that, but it is true. I'm a big old sap, doofus. But be careful out there. Take care of yourself. And right now, during this time, do not get lazy. Really, really do everything you can to keep yourself a little bit isolated. Um, Even if you don't buy into all of the information we're getting, I don't care. What if you're wrong? So I want to say that, if you're wrong, It's better to be safe than sorry. We need you around. So know you're loved, take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. And we will see you down the road. And don't forget to please, if you would do us a favor and hit the subscribe on the Quilters Apothecary YouTube channel, and also hit the like if you like the video, and hit the bell so that you can know when we have new stuff coming out. They're free classes, so it works great. And I would also like to add this. Down the road, on a lot of our friends who are putting out YouTube tutorials right now, those annoying commercials that you see. The one thing to remember is we spend a lot of time and we purchase a lot of equipment to do this right so that we can give you some good tutorials just like a regular class. And to do that, whenever you set through a commercial on YouTube, you know, the artists themselves, they get something like 3 cents, which is hardly nothing. So that's one way that they can get paid, and we can keep making those wonderful tutorials and the videos rather than, and you can enjoy them from the comfort of your own home rather than traveling to a show for those of you that can't travel to a show. So even though you do start seeing the commercials on a lot of people's stuff, just do yourself a favor. Wait until it says skip, and they'll still get their money for that, like their 2 cents or whatever. But be respectful of that. Know that it's not there to annoy you. Know that we don't have any choice if any of the commercials come up of what they show. So keep that in mind. And also make sure to check out longarmtv.com. And there we have everything categorized for us. It's kind of our center of our bike wheel that spokes out to take you where you need to be taken, so you don't have to sort through all of the stuff and all of our websites. So we will see you down the road. Love.